Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Food and Finance Show. And today I have another great guest because it's amazing when you see the storyline behind why and how a business got started. So, Sugar Rush is a great business. I'm ready to jump into the story. So, stay tuned to the episode.
Welcome to another great episode of the Food and Finance Show, where we talk about two things we know you love: great food and money. So stay tuned because we got a great show coming your way.
As always, I'm excited to bring on my special guest, Shannon Mauro. So, welcome to the show, Shannon. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good afternoon.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's definitely a pleasure to have you on because I know the world of owning your own amazing business is not I guess you say sometimes it doesn't feel like you get a day off. So thank you so much for making time to come onto the show.
That is the perfect way to put it. Yes, you gotta be conscious about how you carve out your time. Yes.
And I would say on top of running a business, I mean, you have amazing children, which means like you're even busier than your average business owner.
Especially now that school is out. Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, Janet, I'm excited because, like I said, when I read the story about your business online, just it's always amazing to hear the stories of how the inspiration of what really charged people to get into business. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and just kind of what really spurred you to really start this business?
Well, actually, I grew up in a restaurant owning family. My father has worked in restaurants, owned restaurants throughout the years. So that's how I grew up. And then eventually waitressing, bartending. So I do have that food service industry background. But what happened is I actually had a family recipe that I shared with my husband's sister. And over the years, we actually kind of tweaked it our own little way, and it became the staple whenever there was a new baby or a teacher or a new neighbor, just either something positive or something that maybe somebody needed uplifting or just a little bit of love. That became the staple of something I could give from my heart to them. So that's really how the background of this business got started, was between learning from my father and that being translated into something that I could produce myself and give and eventually sell to others.
Awesome. I think that is amazing. I mean, because especially when you find people who have really, like I said, grown up through all the ranks of what it takes to really run a business, especially in the restaurant industry. I mean, now when you were growing up, I mean, seeing like your family in the restaurant business, now was it something you had in mind to say, hey, that's what I want to do when I grow up? Or were you like, you know what, I want to I want to try something different?
I did not want to grow up in this business because it's very, very difficult. It is incredibly long hours, which are required to succeed. My dad actually, many, many years ago, there was an airport on Long Island, and it was called Islip Airport. And he opened with two business partners, actually. It was the first snack bar there. And that's where his first official business was. And years prior to that, his best friend's father owns a restaurant, and every summer it was a seasonal restaurant. So you'll see those at beach communities, certain areas where these establishments are only open essentially from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And you're working 12, 13-hour days because there's such a limited time for the business to be open. So I've seen through the years the time that it takes to go into something, and also the negative, if there's weather, if you don't have the appropriate labor, which I know a lot of people in the industry are dealing with today, that can really affect the success of a business.
Mhm. No, I absolutely agree because I know, I mean, where my firm is an accounting and finance firm, and we support several restaurants, and just seeing them kind of navigate that. It's always interesting when I see a new restaurant owner and they start to get introduced to the business side of it because they start to realize like, oh, it's about more than just my food or my dish that I make.
And because you have to consider payments, you have to consider how are you keeping that roof over your head. It's not just creating food and having, hopefully prayerfully having somebody purchase it. There's so many other aspects to it where even I, as a small business owner, these elements of business were coming up that I wasn't introduced to prior. So there's always a learning curve. Even if you've been in this industry forever, there's always going to be something new, hopefully, that you should be learning to help you prosper and do well in the long run.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. Now you speak about that where it's like, say, even though you grew up around the business, there were some things that you were running into and learning. After you started your own. Were there any kind of tools that you use to kind of help you navigate that, or was some of it just by trial and error?
Lots of trial and error, lots of trial and error. Finding out what my customer base would prefer was a big one. When I first started the business, I was baking sheets, cutting the sheets, and putting them into larger bakery boxes. And my business opened January 2020, just prior
Oh,
to, just
wow.
a few months before COVID was on anybody's radar. And then, so this is a perfect example. Once COVID hit, I realized I wanted to streamline my process and also limit contact in any way possible, because we were all still learning what this was all about. So that was one big learning curve right there. I went from cutting sheets, placing sheets in a box, to purely a box in a tin and bake in a tin and then box it immediately. So I limited contact, but I also ended up reducing, quote unquote, time that it took, because I wasn't spending as much time cutting and placing cakes and doing that sort of thing. So in that learning curve, I was limiting contact, but I was also reducing the amount of time that I needed per cake. So that was one, it was unfortunate due to the circumstances, but wonderful in terms of what I learned through that process.
Mhm. That's an amazing point that you bring up, because that's something that I don't think a lot of business owners, I mean, I think for any business, it's just thinking about, how do you save, even if it's just a few minutes per product, of how much that adds up. I mean, was that kind of your mindset going into it, or was that something that you kind of, as you saw that, hey, we're able to move through this faster, like, wow, this is a huge benefit?
That was a wonderful benefit that I did not anticipate, because especially in food service, you want to give someone a well designed, a well received product. Not only is presentation important, but taste is important too. Presentation, the first thing they see is going to determine in their head whether they want to continue, whether they want to try it. They're already making decisions before they even ingest, in food, what they're going to eat. So it actually allowed me to better present my product as well. It helped me make decisions where, okay, the box I used before was enclosed. So their first experience was when they opened the box to see my cakes inside. What I moved to was a bakery box that had a window. So when they received my product, they could already see what they were getting. And that actually increased the positive experience with my customers.
Wow, that is amazing. I will say to everyone that is watching and listening, you are definitely listening to a amazing veteran, because it's those little things like what you're talking about that make a huge difference that most people, they don't even think about when they first get into business.
No, you just, sometimes people fall in backwards with it and you're learning along the way. I was really trying to take examples that I learned from my dad's business partner, from my father, and put that into this business, even though it was completely different than owning a restaurant. I'm not trying to give all these different products. I have a very specific product line that people up north, they have their specific bakery go to. They have a specific crumb cake they love. And I'm also working with an experience down here. Not everybody in the Carolinas are familiar with crumb cake. So I have a very big customer base where I'm trying to reach out to people who are maybe missing a piece of home. It's something that's nostalgic, and also introduce people who've maybe never had crumb cake before. Let them learn what it's about, something they can share with others and family, and hopefully create maybe new memories, create new business opportunities. It is unbelievable the amount of stories I've heard from customers I've interacted with. And that's something else that is so important in this industry, is that people actually meet me, the owner, the baker, and because they're investing in me as much as they're investing in the product.
Mm. I absolutely love it. And I love your approach of, like I said, just being very clear on what you do and just do it very well, of not having like a full range of, a million products on your menu. It's like, you know what you do very well. So now, one of the things you mentioned, and you see it when we go to your amazing website, is, it's a New York style crumb cake. So can you help us understand, for all of us that aren't from New York, that don't understand the significance of that, can you help us understand that a little more?
Okay, so a classic New York style crumb cake has a typical vanilla cake. If you've ever had a wedding cake and it's vanilla, that is the base of the cake. And then on top, sometimes it's difficult to describe crumb. It's a lot of butter, it's a lot of flour, sugar, love. The closest I've come is if you've taken a chocolate chip cookie and removed the chocolate chips and crumbled it on top of the cake, that is similar to the crumb of that kind of flavor. So that has powdered sugar sprinkled on top, and it is, I mean, I personally think it's phenomenal. It's my favorite dessert in the world, obviously. But it's just something that it's not fancy. It is very homey. And what I love is it really does give family opportunities to cut and share. It's something that they can take and share together rather than something that's individualized. And um, I I like also the fact that I really don't have too much competition. There aren't 30 other crumb cake businesses out there, so I think I found my little sweet spot, which is pretty cool.
Nice. I love it. I will say the times when I've had crumb cake, what I really enjoyed about it is I was like, it's not too sweet. So it's like I can eat it for breakfast if I want, and I can have it for dessert.
Oh yeah. I mean, personally, I love it first thing in the morning with my coffee. I know my husband prefers a little bit late at night, and the kids will eat it any time of day. So it works for whatever you want.
Awesome. Awesome. Now tell us a little bit, like, how did you decide on the name?
The name is actually very personal to me. The My maiden name is Rush, and growing up, learning from my dad about the food industry when he did co-own a restaurant at one point. He passed away approximately 6 years ago. Unfortunately, in the later part of his life, he was an alcoholic, and I was the only child. He was divorced, so it was really upon me to navigate that journey with my husband, who was my rock that entire time. And having young children, very young children at the time, when he first started going down the negative road, my kids were 5, 3, and 1. And I was down here and he was in New York. So in order to remember all the good times and the positive memories, I wanted to honor my dad. So since my last name is Rush, I thought Sugar Rush would be appropriate.
Awesome. I love it. It's always amazing to hear the stories behind the names, because sometimes when people see a name like, oh, that's a cool name, but when they don't get a chance to hear the backstory behind it, and then they finally do hear it, it's like, man, that name means so much more. So that is amazing.
Oh, thank you. It really is a piece of my heart. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's such a cute name. But there's so much every time I say it, it warms my heart a little bit knowing that it's almost a legacy that I can carry on.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And also, I mean, when you and I were talking through Instagram, I mean, one of the things that I also loved about your story is just, the amount of love that you have for what you do. And, your crumb cakes are a way of you sharing that gift with other people. I think that is so amazing.
It really truly feels like I'm giving somebody a gift every time I give it to them. And my prayer is that they enjoy it. It's something that whether they share it with others or for it's themselves, it's the bright light of their day. And trying to actually take some time, because I'm a small business and it's just me. I'm blessed with having this ability where I can connect with people if they want to connect. Sometimes they just want to take the cake and go, but there are times where it's just so nice to chat with them and learn about somebody. And, sometimes people just, especially in this day and age, they just would love to have a connection and somebody to talk to or somebody to listen for 2 minutes. So that's been such a blessing throughout this whole process, is just having this ability to truly meet my customers and connect with them.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Now that people are very excited and interested in your amazing products, where can they find you? How do they get their hands on the product so they can enjoy it or to share it as a gift with others?
I try to be as accessible as possible. So you can look on Facebook, Charlotte Sugar Rush. You can look on Instagram at Charlotte Sugar Rush. I have a website, which is sugarrushcrumbcakes.com. And then I give out my cell phone number if people want to contact me directly. Because again, sometimes it's just that connection where people have a ton of questions and I love answering them. And it's also kind of nice because people see I still kept my New York number, so they know I'm legit.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And just looking at the website, seeing, like I said, these amazing, amazing photos, like I'm like super excited. I mean, I was like, there's one that really stood out to me, the strawberry one. Now that is seasonal.
Yeah.
Is that in season right now?
It is in season right now. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm actually trying to work on one that's a twist on that classic strawberry one.
Okay.
It's going to be called Strawberry Crunch. And in between that strawberry cake and the crumb cake, you're going to have a layer of vanilla Oreos. So I'm working on that right now. I just got to tweak it a little bit.
Nice. I absolutely love it. Love it. Love it. So I know I will definitely be placing an order for that strawberry as is. And then I'll look out for the next one that comes out.
Well, do you like red velvet? Because that one's out right now and people have been
Really?
Oh yeah, it's a red velvet Oreo. What I've noticed, especially with those in Charlotte, they love maybe something new that's only around for a month, like those specialty cakes. So I've been really trying to listen to my customers. So for the month of June, I have red velvet Oreo.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely be taking care of that order today. Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, one of the questions that I love to ask every one of my guests that come on is, when you think about your journey, kind of, where you started, where you've been and where you are now, and just the future of where you see your business going, what's 2 lessons that you would share with other restaurant owners?
Customer feedback is essential, because these wonderful clients are coming in and they're spending they have this money that they've worked really hard for, and they're making a choice to spend it in your establishment. So you need to have the respect to listen if they might not agree with your service or how your food is presented or how your food tastes. There are some people who like to talk, but for the most part, if you can listen and maybe be able to accept some constructive criticism, it will help your business grow in such a positive manner. And the other thing is, just don't be afraid to take chances. I'm always afraid to take a chance. I'm just I'm so worried about failing. And that's why if you have, especially like my husband, if you have a partner who sometimes you need a little bit of a push and to be able to take chances you normally wouldn't, you'd be surprised. And if not, you learn along the way.
Awesome. I absolutely love it. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Thank you for introducing us to your amazing New York style, I could say authentic New York style crumb cakes. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you like what you heard, don't be selfish. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and then share this with a friend, because you know a business owner that could definitely use this insight. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and turn on the notification bell so you get all the updates when we release